guys, welcome to another episode of my Nightbreed reviews. Now, these were originally labeled as one-shot reviews, but that kind of was irrelevant since I kept doing Nightbreed every single year and it really wasn't a one-shot anymore. So, I guess this is the official beginning of the Nightbreed reviews, and I think this is my 4th year doing it. So this year, the first one we did like theatrical and director's cut comparison, and then we introduced a Cabal cut that I spent way too much money on, and then the ultimate Cabal cut that was sort of unofficial, but it's kind of as close as you can get to that like fabled work print Cabal cut that's floating out there somewhere. And since we're kind of all out of versions, I was like, alright, how about we review the bonus features? Because I crunched the numbers, there's like 5.5 hours of bonus features sprinkled between all these different editions out there. So I was going to kind of review what all of them are, and kind of like let you know if I think they're worth it and like what's included on it, as well as which version is probably the best one for you. Like, is it a bare bones version that like is the cheapest that there is and you don't really care about bonus features? Because if so, it'll be that one. I'll get to in a moment. But otherwise, like, which one is really like worth your time of tracking down? Like, if you're a Nightbreed super fan, if you just want to see some behind the scenes, like, you be the judge. But at the very end, I'll also give you what I think is probably the definitive version that you should be checking out. So without further ado, let's get to this one. Now, this is the Nightbreed DVD that was released in 2001, I believe. Now, there's not a lot on it. It's a theatrical edition before like that Occupy Midian movement really took forward, and it's like standard definition as you would expect. And there's a theatrical trailer on it that's about like 2 minutes long, and this isn't really a thing anymore that people do, but it's a cast and crew like filmography list, and in the day and age of the internet it's kind of irrelevant, but it is kind of fun to see those on there, but not even worth your time. Like, Wikipedia and IMDb gives you way more information than these like already out of date filmography things will give you. It's kind of weird though, like seeing them back on DVDs, because like, yeah, that's just not a thing anymore. Next up is the Scream Factory release that came out in 2014. Now this is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack, and it is of the director's cut. So whenever they finally got around of bringing the Cabal cut in, taking out those like 40 minutes of footage and like adding a whole bunch more in, this was the version they released to kind of celebrate it. And this was probably like the most readily available back when I was getting into Nightbreed, and it was like the first one I wanted to track down. But along with that, it shockingly had a lot of bonus features that you really can get a lot out of. It's about like 2 hours and 15 minutes of bonus features on this one. So the DVD is really just the same with the Blu-ray, so it's essentially just a 1-disc set, unless you really care about that combo pack deal. Well, one thing I also want to preface, I will mention when it's relevant, but I personally don't care too much about audio commentaries. So if it's your thing, cool. But I just don't really care. But I will mention it just so you guys know what's on there. Speaking of, this one has a commentary, and this is for the director's cut, that has writer and director Clive Barker, along with the restoration producer Mark Allen Miller. That is actually a kind of an important thing of note, is that Clive Barker did this commentary, but you'll find that he really isn't involved with any other bonus features almost at all with any of these movies. So if you really want to know what Clive Barker is, like his opinion on this stuff, just in real time while watching the movie, the commentary is really the only way to go, because you're not going to get it elsewhere. So first up on this set is probably the biggest documentary that they have included with these Nightbreeds. It's 1 hour and 12 minutes, and it's called Tribes of the Moon, The Making of Nightbreed. This is really just focused not on the crew, but of just the cast, and it's not really all of the cast members, but it's a lot of the key characters, just kind of reminiscing about what they remember from the shoot, and kind of like takes you on a timeline from their like meetings with Clive Barker way back when, sometimes even before Hellraiser, and up and through like how excited they are for the director's cut that's coming out now. When they filmed this, obviously, it was before the director's cut was finished, so they didn't really know what footage was going to be included, but most of them really kind of get the idea that they've seen the work print footage, so they know what's out there. but I just don't know how it's going to come together. Now, like I said, right off the bat, the lack of Clive Barker is really apparent in this one. It does have a lot of key figures, though. Doug Bradley, who plays Lylesburg in this, and, you know, Pinhead from Hellraiser. Hugh Ross, who plays Narcisse, is in it, along with Simon Bamford, who plays Onaka, and, you know, he also played Butterball in the Hellraiser movies. So they really discuss how they, Doug Bradley and Simon Bamford, became friends with Clive Barker before Nightbreed, and it kind of like leads you through the casting process for people like Christine McCorkindale as Suna Sassy, Craig Schaefer as Boone, and Anne Bobby as Laurie. Now those are really the only core people talked about in this. I think Nicholas Ventz, who plays Kinski, also is Chatter in the Hellraisers. That's one person I expected to be included because he's kind of like that core Hellraiser group. But he wasn't there. Guy who played Peliquin and all of the others like Leland Gum, none of them really came back. I don't know if they weren't even asked. I don't know if there was no interest in it. Also no David Cronenberg. So they do show stuff like alternate takes of scenes and like kind of scenes that weren't included in the theatrical edition as they're talking about their experiences with the movie. A lot of them talk about how difficult it was to like imply the makeups, but also like just the extravagant sets that they got to work with and just the great people, and so much praise hyped on Clive Barker, and you can really tell that there's just so much respect there. They do spend a lot of time talking about how they were really disappointed with how the movie was marketed, how it was changed, the reshoots that were going on, and then how a lot of them, they weren't disappointed with the final cut, but how they wish it just had turned out differently. And that's why they're so excited that the director's cut was coming out. Next up is Making Monsters, an interview with the makeup effects artist, and this runs about 42 minutes. So this is kind of like the companion piece to the documentary you just watched. It would have been interesting if they could have like combined the two and really made it flow together, but this one is really just highlighted by the people at Image Animation, particularly Bob Keane, who was like the lead effects artist on the whole shoot. Also, Paul Jones and Martin Mercer are included as well, and they were really just like other people who were doing effects. They were some of the key people because, as you could assume, there's a lot of makeup effects artists that were going on through Image Animation to do like all of these different monsters, and it was quite time-consuming, as I gathered from the documentary. This one I really do find interesting because you get a lot of shots of the different footage of the monsters specifically, but also some of the effects that they were doing in the movie, and it was just so interesting to see their anecdotes about how they started with like these rough sketches, and they was talking about this one time where they were just told by Clive Barker to throw everything they want all together just to let their ideas flow, and then from there they were able to really take it up a notch and like, okay, this idea that didn't work, but like I like this part of it, and we move and we can put it over here, put it in this monster, and this will be a cool one that I just thought of, and we can add it to this one, was maybe adding this effect here. It was just a great collaborative experience from what I gathered in this documentary. And they showed a lot of test footage as well, and it seemed like they really enjoyed their time on it, but they not too kind about the interference from the studio, because not only were everything re-edited and kind of de-emphasized just like how important the monsters were, the budget got cut, and that really impacted what they were able to do effects-wise, which honestly, when you watch the director's cut, it really doesn't feel like it was impacted too much through the budget cut, but it makes you wonder, like, what else they could have really had. But overall, like, this is a really good documentary, and I think both Tribes of the Moon and this effects one are probably like the two top tier ones that if you do need to see any type of documentaries, these are the ones that you would want to see. It does take up a lot of time, but like for 2 hours, you really learn the general gist of the behind the scenes of Nightbreed. Next up is a theatrical trailer that is actually different than the one from the DVD edition that I talked about before. This one runs closer to just 1 minute long. And then the final documentary included on here is Firefight Stunts, Second Unit Shooting, which runs about 20 minutes in length. And it's actually very interesting because you don't normally learn about second unit shooting in any documentary on a DVD set or even behind the scenes. So it is kind of like to me, it's more interesting not to see it as Nightbreed, but just kind of learning what second unit filming is. One thing they really wanted to do on Nightbreed was to have like layers of fights going on during like the climax scene, but also like even like when they're going through the caves of Midian and there's things happening like that you're focusing on, but there's always stuff in the background. There's always people fighting in the background. There's a new monster in the background. There's other stunts happening while the main stunt is happening. That is kind of what, to me, I didn't understand it before, but I think that's what I love most about Nightbreed. Because the final climax of Nightbreed, I feel like, is so much going on. I absolutely love it. I remember when I first saw it, I was like, wow, it felt like the climax was like an hour long because of everything going on. And I think it's the layers of seeing everything from all these different parts of the screen is probably what I enjoy the most. So I did like this documentary to learn more about second unit filming, which is not something I'm really familiar with, but also kind of have it click. That's why I love Nightbreed. That is probably like the main reason that like just really grabs a hold of me and makes me interested in it. So overall, the set has some very like hefty documentaries to watch, and it's very interesting. I will say probably the cast and crew, the two separate ones, Tribes of the Moon and the effects one, are probably like the main ones on here. But if you do want to learn more about second unit filming just in general, it is worth the 20-minute watch. Alright, so next up is also a set that was released in 2014. It's essentially just a upgraded version of the director's cut from Shout Factory. So this is the limited edition. I think it was limited to just 10,000 units. And this one includes, a booklet of just like different pictures and essays and just people talking about Nightbreed, as well as a 3-disc set. Now, one thing of note is that one of the discs is for the theatrical cut. So it's on a Blu-ray this time. Everything is Blu-ray, there's no DVD combo pack. And so it's an upgraded version of like the DVD release way back when that I've already talked about. And bonus feature-wise, it only has a theatrical trailer, same as the director's cut one. And then the director's cut 2-disc set, the first disc is exactly the same as the director's cut, like just solo edition. And this carries over all those same bonus features, but there is a second disc in that, so I guess the third disc overall, that's considered the limited edition bonus disc. Now this is the one that has some new footage on it. So overall there's a little over 4 hours of bonus features on this entire set. But if you already have the normal Blu-ray DVD combo pack, this one has about almost 2 hours of extra footage. And there's a bunch of different documentaries and just kind of like added goodies that like I'll get into. So this so far is the most comprehensive of the lot. It has everything from the director's cut, and the only thing it's missing again is that one random different theatrical trailer from the DVD way back when. So first up is a bunch of deleted scenes, and this is stuff that just was from the work print footage that they just didn't really have any place to put it. I'll go through all of the deleted scenes just so you know what they are. So the first up is Joyce visits the crime scene. This is just kind of like an extended shot of like that opening time when Decca kills that family. I think it was mainly removed for pacing. Like the footage is good, but I think there just wasn't enough. I think they wanted to get rid of the slasher element too, could focus more on the breed. So I think it was a good reason that it got cut. Next one is Boone in the hospital. It's an alternate take of things going on there. Honestly, it's not too different of what you see in the final version. There's also 2 separate deleted scenes of Laurie being interrogated. And one of them is when she kind of figures out how to go to Midian. So it is kind of like an important little thing, but again, not needed for the overall movie. There's another deleted scene where Laurie meets up with Cheryl Ann, and it's kind of poor footage. There's another one after that where Laurie saves Bobette, which, you know, is included in the actual versions of the movie, but this is just kind of has some alternate takes for it and just some extended shots. There's also called Boone Saves Laurie alternate, and it's kind of like when Laurie shows up and Boone's trying to run up to save her before Decker can get her, and it's just a small thing added. I think he like just fights one of the Nightbreed before running off, and it again doesn't add too much. There's the armory deleted scene, which really just kind of goes into the guy describing all the different guns they have, and again, I get why they trimmed that one down. This is just what it would look like in full. And some of my favorite, and you see these in the Cabal cut, but it's Decker talking to the mask, and there's 2 separate shots of this, and I really wish this was included in the director's cut because I like that element from the actual novel, and again, I know I mentioned in one of my other reviews, but I think that's one of my favorite things about the Cabal cut is that they integrated that back into the movie. There's one called Young Nightbreed Fight Back, and it's just kind of like an extended part of that climax scene. There's a lot going on, so I get why not everything's included. There's also when Ashbury finds the Baphomet chamber. Kind of, I think it has unfinished audio, and you can tell it wasn't quite ready for to be included in the director's cut. Not until later when they find like more audio and footage that they really figure out how to integrate it into one of the future versions. There's another one where Joyce finds Bobette, and it's like an alternate take of it. And this one has like that fabled dog man that they really... It was a thing from Clive Barker's like imagination. Like he always wanted to have this man that's a dog like saving Bobette and just included somehow. And it is in this deleted scene, and it's just kind of like a fable thing. It's like it's something that Clive really wanted, but it just never made any of the versions of the movie. There's another one where Joyce finds Bobette, but the mother is involved. There's Boone in the Chamber alternate that is kind of like when he's like talking to Baphomet later on when everything's falling apart. I think it's kind of really bad acting by Craig Schaefer, so I get why it wasn't included. One thing that's kind of interesting is that they include the theatrical ending that they chopped out of the movie when adding in the director's cut. And this is when Ashbury is like resurrecting Decker, and this is kind of like the way the studio wanted to go if they made any sequels to Nightbreed. So I do like how they included that. Finally, there's a Kinski stalking Boone scene that was really early in the movie, but they included here at the end because the audio is just very much not there, and it looked like it was kind of almost just like some test takes for it. So those deleted scenes ran for about like 22 minutes. There's also another thing called Monsters Prosthetics Masterclass that ran for about 11 minutes, and this is kind of Bob Keane talking less about Nightbreed. He does brag about how apparently, at least when the movie came out, they had the most monsters on screen at one time. But it's just less about Nightbreed and more so just kind of like in broad strokes how to do like latex and makeup, and it really is kind of interesting tutorial. Next up is Cutting Compromise, which runs almost 14 minutes, and it's about the second editor of the movie, Mark Goldblatt, who replaced the original editor on behest of the studio, and he was brought in to make things more scary and horrific. And ultimately he's a guy who kind of like helped add in all of these new slasher elements, like the receptionist dying at the hotel, or like the man in that one like off-road store that Decker kills. And it feels like he's really trying to defend his work on the theatrical cut, where you can't really blame him for anything. He was doing the job that he was given. He was told to add in this new footage. It's not like he's the one that filmed it. And he did a good job editing it. It's just it's a shame that it kind of feels like he is kind of having to defend himself because everyone wants the director's cut and really like push forward for it because they weren't a fan of how the theatrical edition turned out. But it's really important to know that it's the producers that led the theatrical edition to be the way that it was, not the editor. Next up is about a 5-minute thing called The Painted Landscape. It really just shows how Ralph McQuarrie, who you might know from Star Wars or a plethora of other stuff, I'm a Star Wars geek, so that's where I know him from. He did all of the different like drawings and mock-ups of what it's going to look like for some of the different cave drawings, as well as some concept art and also some poster mock-ups. And even though Clive Barker was really the one behind like designing the monsters, a lot of like the big extravagant set designs were through Ralph McQuarrie. Running about 9 minutes is a matte painting test, which really just kind of like has all those like giant matte paintings that they have, which is like the necropolis, which is like the graveyard outside of Midian. There's some like off shots of that and also close-up ones, and there's just really kind of small landscape shots that are included where if you watch the movie you can tell where the matte paintings are included, but it is kind of interesting to watch how they're inserted as well as what they looked like before they were even integrated in there and different tests for it. But it does run pretty short for what I expected to be included. Next up is almost 5 minutes of just makeup effects, and it's like Narcisse's severed head, and there's like different like dead bodies on the ground that they were testing, and it was just like a very like a low-key, just kind of thrown together bonus feature stuff. Next, there's about 7 minutes of lost stop motion footage, and it's Bob Keane talking about how even though he's not the one who did all those like stop motion effects, but they really had extravagant ideas of what they wanted to include with Nightbreed using stop motion. And he really talks about how, one, with the budget getting cut and just a slow making of stop motion, a lot of key scenes that they wanted to include just couldn't be included. Next up is about 3.5 minutes of the extended torture scene where they're kind of like flashing back to all the Nightbreed being killed by people way back when. It was kind of cool seeing all of that stuff together. I really like when they include like the full thing of that on bonus features. So, and that was a really cool scene. The torture scene where all these things are getting beheaded or just bleeding while hanging from things, thrown into a pit. Very interesting stuff, and I'm really glad they included it. Next is about 3 minutes of just like that intro graveyard like dance scene that really it's just test footage for it. It's not like too like essential to be watched. Finally, there's a bunch of still galleries that's included. Now there's about like 2.5 minutes of like early sketches, still galleries, which are kind of like different drawings of Clive Barker of what he wanted some of the Nightbreed to look like. Then there's about 3.5 minutes of just kind of like deleted scenes that were included. Then just kind of like about like 1 minute of poster and pre-production art. Lastly, there's 2 more. One was called On the Set of Nightbreed. That's almost 20 minutes, and it's kind of some like test shots of Nightbreed, but also just kind of like the behind the scenes stuff, and it really is like the most like extravagant of all the still galleries, because you really get like a feel of what the set was like, what it was like to go through all this makeup, these different great like shots of the different Nightbreed. And that leads me to the cast and crew still gallery, which is mainly of the cast in costume, and it's kind of like publicity photos in a way, but also it is kind of cool seeing some of the crew members get included in that. And that one ran about like 5 minutes, 5.5 minutes or something like that. Next up is the 2017 release of the Cabal cut, which I have extensively gone and talked about in one of my previous reviews. Right off the bat, not worth the price tag. I love it. I'm glad I have it in my collection, but not essential. This one was also extremely limited, as you probably know. It was like 200 of the like deluxe editions and 50 of just kind of the standard edition. But it's kind of like an asterisk next to that, because they did make extra that they eventually did get the rights from Morgan Creek to give out. So the version I have isn't one of the numbered ones. So there is a quite bit more than the 250 out there, but it's still extremely limited. This one just has a 30-second intro of Mark Allen Miller, who was the director's cut producer, but is also the Cabal cut producer, introducing this movie, how they have a lot of rough work print footage included in it, but it is kind of like the most comprehensive version up to that point of Cabal. And besides that, there are 2 audio commentaries. The first commentary is with the restoration producer, Russell Charrington, along with the Cabal cut editor, Jimmy Johnson. And the other audio commentaries was Occupy Medium founders Jose Litow and Ryan Danhauser. This next one, though, came out in 2019, and it goes a little bit different than what I've been doing. I focus just on Region 1 releases, but I do think there's something to be said about the release from Arrow Video. Now, this was in 2019, and it was kind of like a limited edition set. It comes with a box set with new cover art, and it includes a new booklet different from the one included with a Shout Factory limited edition, as well as a giant poster of both the new art and another art that's included. So right off the bat, this one has about 5.5 hours of bonus footage included. About 1 hour and 20 of it is extra. Now, this has 3 different discs included on it. And if I didn't say it already, this is a Region 2 release, which means you need either Region 2 player or a Region free one. But again, I do think that this is important to note, because this includes so much footage. This is pretty much the most comprehensive one you can get. So this one is a 2-disc set, but the first disc, and again, they're both Blu-rays, the first disc has both the theatrical cut and the director's cut on it. Now, this has the same bonus features from the Shout Factory director's cut included on it. Now, on top of all of that, which includes the same audio commentary as Clive Barker, the theatrical cut that's on this disc has its own audio commentary. This one has critics Adrian J. Smith and David Flint, which, again, I'm not a fan of commentaries, but it is cool that depending on which version you get, there's a different commentary for it. And again, this is an exclusive commentary that wasn't included elsewhere. And then the second disc kind of includes the same limited edition stuff that was included in the Shout Factory one of their bonus disc. However, Air goes the extra mile, and they include not only the original theatrical trailer that you commonly find on the director's cut versions, but also that one theatrical trailer from the old DVD set from way back when. This is the only other time that it appears again, which is, it's funny that that was somehow like excluded for so long. On top of all of that, there is more bonus features. Now this first one's about 30 minutes in length, and it's called Memories of Midian. Now this one, it's kind of interesting because before, when I even made notes, before I knew this existed, that Nicholas Vance wasn't included in that other documentary, this is a interview of just talking about him. Now, it's not like a expertly edited together one with different shots of the movie. It is kind of like just a straight interview with him just reminiscing about his time with the movie. So it makes me think that he just was not available when they were filming the bonus feature for the Shout Factory version back in 2014. Just a lot of great stories that he talks about of his friendship with Clive to begin with, how Hellraiser, similarities to Hellraiser, just his experience with the makeup in the movie. But one interesting thing is that he got a gig working with Marvel for writing for the Hellraiser comics as well as their Nightbreed comics, which I may or may not start reviewing next year for my annual Nightbreed reviews, but we'll see. We'll see what I do. Next up is a 23-minute thing called Walking the Line Between Heaven and Hell. And this includes critic Kat Elliner, which wasn't what I expected to find on these movies, giving like a really critical analysis of what Nightbreed is like, just cut to the greater community. This one talks about the cultural movement of Nightbreed, or also just Clive Barker in general, some of his inspirations, and just really gives you like just a different perspective on Nightbreed that I personally didn't have. So it was interesting in that regard. And then as a companion piece to that, there's Speaking Up for the Monsters, which is about 18 minutes long. And it includes talking from the critic Kim Newman about, again, more critical analysis of what Nightbreed is. And one thing he really touches upon a lot is how Nightbreed should have been more movies. He expected it to at least be a trilogy, but the meddling of like the final cut really kind of squashed any hope of that. But he did kind of talk about how the themes in the movie really do not feel complete, especially with the ending. Both of these critics have a lot of great things to say, but also I can't say that it was really essential stuff unless you are a super fan of Nightbreed. Now on top of that, there is about a minute of TV spots that are pretty poor quality, but it's what you would expect from TV spots back from the 80s at this point. And the still galleries are all included, but there's actually 2 more included on it, which is kind of interesting that they just added upon it. One of them is about 5 minutes for a UK watch party way back in the day, and it showed a lot of memorabilia and different props from the set, but also a lot of the cast and crew back when they were younger during the premiere, as well as the Human's Guide to the Nightbreed, which is only about 2 minutes, and they're just kind of pictures of what I can only assume is just kind of an excerpt from a book, kind of talking about all the different characters in a Nightbreed to give viewers an idea of the background, brief background of some of these characters. Now in 2020, Era Video also put out the exact same set again, but this one doesn't have the box that it comes with, the poster, or the exclusive booklet. But it does include the exact same bonus features, theatrical and director's cut, the 2-disc set. It really is just a more affordable version and easily found version. But keep in mind it's also region 2. But it does include everything that we just talked about. Next is this Ultimate Cabal cut version that I reviewed last year. It has no bonus features, doesn't even have a menu. It is the most complete version that you can find out there, but as I mentioned last year, it is too long, not the version you really want to see, but it is readily available. But no bonus features, so for the sake of this review, it doesn't really give too much information. Now lastly, you get the final release as of this video, which came out in 2023, just last year. It is the Collector's Edition 4K release of Nightbreed. Now, that is kind of misleading because it's only 4K for the theatrical cut. So this is a 4-disc set, which sounds very extravagant. But the first disc is a theatrical edition in 4K. It looks great, but it has no bonus features added onto it. Now the second disc is the theatrical cut again, but this one's on Blu-ray. But this is where it gets a little interesting because not only does it include the theatrical trailer that's on most of these sets, but include the 3 exclusive documentaries that were included was the Arrow video release, not on the original Scream Factory release. Now, this isn't advertised on the back of the set. If you do go to Scream Factory and find the listing, it is included on there, but I find it interesting that they didn't readily make it known that, hey, this is stuff that wasn't included on our original Blu-ray release. After that, the 3rd disc is the director's cut, which is literally a copy and pasted version of their release way back when. But the 4th disc is of the limited edition bonus disc included on that 2014 release. It has all the bonus features, everything is exactly the same. So it is important to note that this includes a lot of stuff from this limited edition that's very hard to find, and it is at a much more reasonable retail price nowadays. So overall, the only things that it's missing compared to the Arrow video is the TV spots, one of the theatrical trailers that was kind of harder to find for some reason, as well as those 2 extra still galleries. So let's just give it all like a big roundabout to see what is the definitive version that is best for you. Now, I personally love the director's cut. Any version that includes the director's cut is the one you should get. Theatrical cut is just not the best. The Cabal cut is too expensive, and the Ultimate Cabal cut is just unofficial and a lot. So anything with the director's cut is really what you need to find. Personally, I think the Shout Factory director's cut that came out in 2014 is probably the best bang for your buck. It's not too expensive nowadays. It has both a Blu-ray and a DVD if that's what you need. And it really serves its purpose. The documentaries included on it are great, and it's really the only like essential stuff that you would need. Now, with that said, if you want the most definitive thing of Nightbreed, it's either both Arrow releases. So this is the Arrow release that doesn't include the like box and booklet and poster. It's much cheaper than finding the other one. This one's still readily available on their website. However, even though it's super comprehensive, has everything that you're looking for, it is Region 2. So that is a big turnoff for a lot of people. So that brings me to, if you are a super fan and really want all this extra stuff but don't want to break the bank, the collector's edition that just came out is probably the best one for you. Now, this one is currently very cheap, relatively, because if this one goes out of print, I can see it skyrocketing. I forget how much I paid for it. I want to say about $40 at the time. And it really, since it includes that limited edition bonus disc, but you don't have to pay like the upwards of $100 to get that set, it's probably the best one that you can find. So again, if you just want to watch Nightbreed, this one. If you are a super fan of Nightbreed, the collector's edition that just came out in 2023 is the way to go. And if for some reason you really want those still galleries and that TV spot and that one extra trailer, then you can go with the Arrow video release. But ultimately, the way to go is, since I'm a Nightbreed fan, go with the version that just came out. It is the best bang for your buck. I was really pleasantly surprised. Like, I'm disappointed that it doesn't have a 4K release for the director's cut, but that just doesn't exist for any release right now, so this is probably the best one for you. Now, I do plan on doing more reviews this year. I do plan on doing more Nightbreed reviews in years to come. I am also interested in maybe doing some more Clive Barker stuff. I have never seen Lord of Illusion, so I kind of want to see what that's like. Leave me your feedback if there's any movies you want me to review. I promise I will get to more this year. I'm working on other projects for other people, like editing podcasts and whatnot, so I will keep you guys updated if there is any like big movement on that. But besides that, I guess I'll see you guys next year for Nightbreed reviews, and hopefully later this year for more reviews of some kind, maybe a little bit of Year of the Full Moon for the ones that we've been missing, as well as just kind of extra movies that I just want to talk about. Let me know what format you guys also like, because I personally like kind of having reviews off the cuff with someone else, but sometimes it's more like detailed with notes and really giving you guys my all about some passion projects of mine. That's also fun to do. So just let me know what you guys want me to do. I have no fan, so I'll do it for that one fan out there.